Hi, I'm Tom Gibis, and I play Shikamaru Nara in Naruto, and you're listening to the Points of Experience podcast. Enjoy. It won't be a drag.
What a drag. That's my bad impersonation of the wonderful Tom Gibis, the voice of Shikamaru, a catchphrase that has transcended multimedia platforms. Really, one of my favorite characters in anime of all time. If not my favorite, absolutely my favorite character in anime. And Tom is just as amazing as you'd imagine he would be, and I'm really excited for you guys to see some of that in this episode today. We just kind of have a wonderful chat, and when I met Tom for the first time, I could just tell he was someone I could sit and talk to for hours, and we didn't have enough time today, and I abused my time with him. Tom, I'm sorry! Thank you for going as long as we did. I hope I didn't bore you, but you were fantastic. We talk about your start working in the Disney cruises, your process, doing Shikamaru, doing improv, our words of wisdom for aspiring actors. We talk a lot about actors, and if that's your cup of tea, I think you're going to enjoy it. And obviously, we talk a lot about Naruto. Guys, if you're listening to this on one of your podcast platforms, feel free to give us a subscription, subscribe, right? You get the notifications. That's a subscription. Yeah, you can like and subscribe on YouTube and on your podcast platforms. But if you're on the podcast platforms, you can leave us a review. YouTube and all that stuff. Make sure you stay up to date on what we're doing, and check out our brand new Patreon. At the end of the episodes, we shout out our patrons, and it helps us make our show even better. Patreon.com/POX. You can be a contributor, help us make this show so cool. You get access to behind the scenes. Join the Discord. It's a really great time. You get to be a part of the creation of the Points of Experience podcast. But without further ado, everybody, please welcome, strap in, sit tight, be prepared to roll your eyes just like Shikamaru at my stupidity, interviewing the wonderful, the one and only Tom Gibis on the Points of Experience podcast. It's funny, speaking of that stuff, I wonder, you've probably done... I'm curious if you even have a recollection of how many of these podcasts, panels, things that you've done speaking regarding your career. Do you have kind of like what they do in terms of daytime television? Do you have go-to stories that you have that you like to talk about on shows? Or
Not
is there not like one of those ones that you've...
I'll find that I'll get talking, and then, something that you ask me or whatever, and I'll come up with something, and then I go, oh, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. I guess there are times when I go, did I tell that? Because you have an origin story.
Right.
So you end up telling that kind of the same, and I can't seem to cut it down to just a nice bite-sized chunk, so that's a bit of a story. But, it's, you'd think I would have a little bit more pat answers, but I really don't. So
no. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that...
But I have done a ton of these.
I can only imagine. And this one is going to be the best. By far. It's going to be the best. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Well, because, we're friends, and, so that makes it a lot easier. It's very... a little more relaxed,
Yeah, I think a lot of times people like it when it is friendly conversations. And I mean, not to say that there's not great things with interviews and stuff too, but I try to make them as personable as possible because I think people really like to hear about the ride and the journey in a very personable way. And
sure.
Just for your own sake too, I mean, and for the listener's sake, I mean, you... and last week, if you guys listened to Brian, I talked a little bit about that, but more so even with Tom, because I had done one of like my first big conventions with you, and you Colorado Springs, the great Colorado Springs, which was a really fun and interesting one, cool town. But you were so kind to me right out the gate, and kind of were like, I'm going to teach this kid the ropes in terms of I
hope that doesn't come off condescending. It was
more
like I started to talk and you were like, that's a great idea or what. And then I'm like, I got somebody who's going to listen to me because these guys have all heard it, and they're done.
Sure.
They're like, oh, there's Tom talking about his wristbands or his whatever,
Right.
And, marketing stuff, and that's basically what we were talking about. But it's more like if you go like, oh, hey, what would you do? And I'm like, I will text you where I get those and how
Yeah.
that works and the whole. I'm happy to talk to anybody who will listen to me. And we had like a 30-minute ride from the hotel.
It was an hour, I think.
Well, I think initially we met because we were on the airport run,
Right.
and that
right.
was like an hour and a half.
Yes.
So we got to know everybody on that bus, and that
Yes.
was fun. That was
Yes.
like I actually said said this would be a great podcast because we had we had people from not just anime. We had people from all
TV,
different
film,
TVs. Yeah, and it was crazy. And there was like maybe 15 on that bus, maybe
Felt
not
like
that
it for
many.
sure.
But yeah, it was packed, and we all got to talking. And then it was like the guy that was sitting next to you. He worked for the Disney Cruise Line. I worked for the Disney Cruise
Right.
Line. It was like all these like connections, and that was a lot of. That's the reason you do these shows.
I know.
Honestly, because it is a lot of fun, and so yeah. So anyway, I hope it didn't come off as listen,
No.
kid. Let me show you a few things.
I could. I mean, and this is what I said to Brian too, but it's more even applicable to you because you were kind of the first person I spoke to in this way. Obviously, number one, I was a huge fan of Naruto growing up, and I told you this. I'd watched
Yeah,
it.
you're a Sasuke fan.
Well, no, my cat's name is Sasuke, but my favorite, and we do call him the Leaf Village's handsome devil, but between Allie, my partner, and I's favorite character of all time in the show is by far Shikamaru.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Rock Lee.
No, no.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
very
honestly
much.
truly believe that it was crazy because I'd watched anime growing up, and I'll get back to the point here, but I'd watched anime growing up, and when I watched Naruto, it was the first time where it didn't feel, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, maybe it'll make sense to you or the listeners, it didn't feel like I was watching anime. It felt like something different. It felt like in a class of its own. The acting, I think, had a lot to do with that in terms of the performances. Everything was so grounded and real. And not, while there were crazy characters, there were characters like you that were so comedically dry that I was like, that's my sense of humor. That's what I resonate with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that type of I don't give a damn attitude. I was like, that's me in my life. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do my homework. All this stuff's a drag, all this shit sucks. So that was where I came from. And to have someone like you, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your life, just be so cool and so open, so giving, kind, like no sense of ego in the sense of like, what I have experienced in this career many times, having done on-camera stuff for certain, where there's like a kind of like a who are you type of dude, like you're not on my level. I've experienced that, for what it is and what it's not.
I'm the other way. I'm like, well, part of that is having, what is that syndrome where you don't think you
Imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Like you're the biggest star in the room. Somehow somebody made a mistake and my name ended up on this roster. So that's kind of the way I feel. So everybody, I'm like, oh, what's the show you're doing? Because that, you're here for a reason, just like I am. So I kind of feel like, if not equals, like I look kind of up to everybody that's there because they're, you're sitting next to Lou Ferrigno or George Takei or something, and you're like, holy crap, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
and it's wild. So, but you're right. Ego left a long time ago, and that's part of getting. Well, I know some older people that it's worse than ever, but I feel like, I'm having fun now, and I got nothing to prove, and who cares?
But that's the thing. Okay, good for you. And I think it's. I see you the way you interact with fans, and I see people leave your table. I was able to be a very good observer, fly on the wall, and the impact that you have on people is so awesome. And to see somebody leave your table giddier than when they walked up there, because most of these people are terrified and they're so nervous and they have such an attachment, and to see it go from nerves to like such a wholesome moment, laughing, smiling with their parents or their friends, that was really inspiring to me because it's part of this gig. It is part of this gig, and maybe we didn't sign up for that part of it, but it becomes part of it,
we're performers.
Right.
At the end of the day, you're a performer. I look at it as that is my job. I can't go to Colorado Springs and sit in the corner and grump, even if I'm having a bad day or things are not going well or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they bought a ticket and, they're coming up to my table and they're going to spend a little money, and I've got to make them feel like they got their money's worth,
Yeah.
And that's that, I did a lot of improv shows in my life. lot of them for big crowds, which is fantastic. There's nothing better. But I've also done improv shows for 5 people, and and you go, "Are we going to do a show tonight?" There's 6 of us, and there's 5 of them,
Right?
And you go, they paid $15. They're here to see a show. Let's go out and have fun. And sometimes those shows can be a lot of fun just because you end up playing with your castmates,
Right,
and that kind of thing. But it is part of that. I'm a performer. When I step out on stage, I gotta be this guy, which is Tom Gibis, who's I'm gonna listen to you and answer your questions, and and I'm not gonna be grumpy about it. And you've seen people.
Oh yeah.
That just like every little thing, and it's like what there's no room for that. To me it's like being and I don't want to make it sound like it's fake, because I enjoy doing it, and I'm just a chatty person when you get right down to it. And you get me going on a subject, and I'll just on and on and on. Which my wife is like, this is perfect for him. They talk about stuff he likes, and then he just will not shut up. And she has to literally like, okay, we have to get to the next person.
Sure.
Because I'm in the middle of a story or something. But that's what it is. I feel like I do have to kind of be up and energetic and give it my all. And they're paying hard-earned money, and it's a weird transactional thing too.
Right.
Basically, we're getting a little off, but the signature, the signing, is just a vehicle to facilitate an interaction or create a moment.
Right.
So I'm always aware of this is their moment, and I need to, not be a jerk right now,
right.
or not. I'm late for lunch, and it's been 20 minutes, and someone was supposed to come over and get me, and I'm not taking it out on that person. I'm going to be like, hey, sorry, I got to go to lunch, but I'll see you in a minute.
Yes.
I'll be right back. Or wait, you know what? I'll sign this, and then I'll give you this for free because I have to go. But thanks. After the panel, come find me. I'm really trying to, and again, it's not like I'm fake about it. It's just I'm just saying I realize that I guess the part about it is I can't afford to be down, and I don't like being that way anyway. I try. It's
also not part of your DNA. It doesn't seem like. So it's
right. It's easy. It's easy for me, and there are people that are just generally miserable actors, and everything is a competition.
Yeah.
And and it's like, wow, I'm glad I'm not that.
Yeah. Well, it meant a lot to me to see that, and it was very inspiring, and it's kind of a moment, something you said, which I mean, obviously I could ask you about your favorite convention thing, but the thing that I'm more curious about now is, do you have a favorite moment of improv that you've done? I know you said you worked on the Disney Cruise Line.
Yes.
Is there a moment of performance, whether improv or doing the stage stuff that you started out with, that you were like, that went crazy, or that was the most fun I've ever had? Any of those types of moments?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny with improv. I've done so many improv shows, and when it works, it's the best, and I love it, and I feel like I'm the best at it when I'm doing it, and there's a big crowd. And then when there's not, it's like the worst thing ever.
Right.
So like sometimes you want to go out there and give a show for 5 people, but you're like, oh man, and then it doesn't work, or nothing's happening, or they're not laughing or whatever, and it's the worst. But it's funny. I have people that I've worked with over many years, and they'll say, oh, remember that bit you did? And I was like, no recollection whatsoever. I mean, some of the fun stuff, I guess I do kind of remember moments of, I can't tell you just specific things about sketches or skits or whatever, improv that we did. But I do remember, like, when we were doing the Disney Cruise Line, they were building the ships. So the ships were being built just in a little town called Mestre, which is like everybody that works in Venice has a apartment in Mestre. So
it was out of L.A.
No, it was out of Italy.
Oh,
Venice, Italy.
Oh, Venice, not Venice Beach,
yeah.
Right?
So Mestre. So Venice is a ghost town, right?
Yes.
The people that live in Venice are like wealthy people who have an apartment there that they stay 4 weeks out of the year or whatever. So it doesn't function as a real city the way it did in the 1600s or even the 1800s or whatever. But the people that, run the grocery stores and the restaurants and the waiters and the cooks and the, everything, the people, the maids, all that, they live in Mestre, right? Which is one train stop away from Venice. It's on the mainland, and Venice, of course, is an island. And in between is this shipyard Vincenteri shipyard, and that's where we lived. And while they were
Oh.
building the ships, and they were actually behind schedule, so they started bringing over cast members in order to put pressure on the shipbuilders to finish the ships.
Wow.
And yeah, it was like a whole thing. Anyway, so they rented these two little Greek cruise ships, and that's where we lived. And so in order to keep the crew entertained, and we had a lot of, when you join Disney, first of all, you have to go through this thing called traditions, which is the brainwashing. That's
right.
no,
right.
but it's like everything about the company you'd ever want to know, and they kind of tell you the whole story and what their mission is, and they want to make sure everybody's a part of it. It's like 6 or 7 hours of training. Right?
Wow.
It's not, and it's done over like a week. It's like,
Longer than
oh my
learning
God.
getting a driver's license, you know.
It's horrible. It's horrible. But it is kind of interesting, and they know how to do it. You know,
Yeah.
like they have these professional people trained up to how to do these things, and they give you these little figurines, Disney figurines, when you get an answer right, and and it's so funny how you start kind of like, I got to get a figurine, you know.
I see what's going on here.
Yeah, they get you to kind of get involved in it, so that when the next question is asked, you're going to be, you see me.
They got it down.
Piece of plastic, they got you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I was going. Oh, so we did shows for the crew,
Right.
because we didn't have nothing to do, so they wanted us to rehearse. So we kept rehearsing, and so we would do shows for the rest of the crew, which was multi-international crew, of every job that you can have on a cruise ship. Our job, the 5 of us, was to be the comedians, and so we did shows. And I remember at those shows, because of all the weird things that we were going through, we just made fun of all of it, including the Disney Corporation and how things are backed up and how the Italian workers weren't going to finish the ship and all this stuff. And we thought, well, we're fired. They're going to send us home.
Right.
And it was great because it was good for morale. Immediately, the rest of the crew was like, yeah, we're all in this together. And everybody was complaining about everything, and
Sounds
all
like
of a
theater,
sudden,
pretty by and large,
yeah,
you know.
that's life, right?
Right, life too.
If you're in theater, all people do is complain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's
right.
it. Especially when you're doing a long run and you're at the theater most of your time,
Long nights,
and your
yep.
off hours are hanging out with them at the bar. So then it's just like, can you believe, and. But it ended up being this great sort of fun, the company was really good about it. And actually, when we did our shows, when we finally got going for guests that came on the ship, we could do anything we wanted. We could say anything we wanted.
Oh.
But this was the beauty of it, is that the audience thought we didn't. Like, they thought there were limits. Like, this is Disney. They're not going to swear or something.
Right.
And when you walk that line in comedy, it's sort of like Seinfeld, right? Seinfeld is a funny show because of the things they didn't say, not because of the things they did say. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, because there's certain
Right.
things you couldn't say on television. So you
Right.
found a very clever way to say it, right?
Right.
Because you know that there is a censor that's going to stop you from going
Yes.
over the edge, right? So like the contest is a great example of that, right?
Right.
They never said what they were doing.
The first person to know. Yes. For anyone
But
listening,
everybody knew what
yeah.
they were talking about.
Yes.
So we did a lot of
I'm
that.
out.
So we did a lot of that. And then every once in a while we'd cross the line.
Mm-hmm.
And then the audience would literally be, "What?" and they couldn't believe it. So at one point, I don't know if I should tell, is there a PG-13 on this?
Nah, you're good. So,
All right.
you know.
So we were doing this. I'll probably get in trouble. We were doing this thing called soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So first, what did the first thing I said? I said I don't remember any of these things, and now I'm telling
There you
all
go.
about it. So we did this gag soap opera. So you would get something from the audience like so and so has a fear, and what is their fear? This so and so. So I was and it was all took place on a cruise ship, and I was the ship's doctor, and that's decided by the audience, and then my thing was I was obsessed with cats, right? So
me.
in the scenes. in the scenes I'd be like, licking and, doing cat-like behavior and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And you'd throw that into the dialogue. But at one point, the woman who was playing the rich heiress, she had a cat. And so then they would do these breaks where you'd stop to get a suggestion. And we would do an aside to the audience, like, I'm going to make her fall in love with me, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
And it came to what my thing was supposed to be, and I said, I'm obsessed with Alexa's pussy. And they just went freaking crazy. Like that I was like, I'm talking about her cat. And then and the show came to a stop. We took a fake call from Michael Eisner, who was calling. I understand that there was a bad word said on the, because one of the guys was on the mic in the back. The audience went crazy. Like, as soon as we get back to shore, I'm going to be thrown off this ship.
You're done.
And I kept going, I'm talking about her cat. I mean, it wasn't, and it was so, they made me stand in the corner, like, and the audience just went nuts. It was so much fun. But we didn't get one note from management, nothing.
Oh.
They were like, it's improv. You guys do what you do. This is an adult area on the ship, and this is that show was like awesome. Like, they loved that, but we were playing with the idea that the audience thought that we had a boundary.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
right. And that's what makes it so fun. And I think the spontaneity of that, and I think I've noticed in doing theater myself, when the audience, when something goes wrong, you see the audience, or what they perceive to go wrong almost too. You see the...
It's live theater, right? That's the
right.
And then when you just take that and run with it,
yes,
right? Then it's like now they feel like it really happened right in front of our eyes. Like, this is not manufactured in any way, shape, or form.
It's something so special about that. It's you can't replicate I mean, you can. The only way to do it is by being open to the yes and element of acting. Is just being able to go along with the ride with your partners and not being like, well, this is the formula. This is where I can only stay. Because the audience, I've seen it myself, they go, there's that inhale of like, what's going on here? What's going to happen next? And those moments, I've talking to audience members or friends who've seen shows and things like that have happened doing improv myself. They're like, we didn't know what was going to happen. And that's the story they always talk about, which is so weird. It's like, that's not what we planned, but that's the thing that you guys remember.
Like I say, when improv goes well, it's just like, it's magic,
I know.
It's like a magic show. When it goes wrong, which is what any stand-up will tell you, if I have to sit through another improv show.
Right.
Because usually they're waiting to go on or whatever. And there's so many bad, and there's just this formula you really got to know the people you're working with, and you really got to, when you're doing, I don't know, we were doing like 10 shows. Well, no, we did 5 shows a night, 6 nights a week.
Wow.
And 5 nights a week, and then one day off, and then we had a day where we weren't doing the show. You would do something else, like host a game show or something. They had us on this rotating schedule. So when you do that many shows, you get good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you just you try and like not repeat yourself. Boy, do you get challenged.
Right.
And our shows was very short form, and there were a lot of setups that were like, we're going to do another Disney movie. So, what would be a sequel to one of your favorite Disney movies? And you're going to get Pinocchio 1,000 times. You're going to get, all these things. And you're like, okay, well, we have to approach this in a different way. We can't just, this was our challenge amongst our cast, was like to not take the easy way out and go, we did that.
I know what to do.
I can take that joke and I can do this. And, stuff like that. So you don't just have it in your bag of tricks. You try and find something different and really challenge yourself to do that. And boy, I'll tell you, you're so quick when you're doing that. It's like, it's crazy.
That lesson though, that feeling that you're talking about is one of the best pieces of advice I think an artist can hear no matter what they're doing, especially in voice acting. I notice a lot of times when I'm doing characters that, like, especially in anime or video games, the amount of times we get reacts, or you have to do a gasp, you have to do a pain in your side, or you have to do the, or those things.
Yeah.
How many
try
times?
And make them different. Yeah.
But honestly, I mean, there's certain times where like I'll go too far, and they're like, okay, you're so far from the mark of what you need to be doing here. Just do the gasp, you know?
Yeah.
But I have it in my brain as an artist where I'm like, I can't keep doing the same. Like, every time I get hit, it can't be, and I'm like, how else can you get hurt? That pursuit of spontaneity, nuance, and not being reliant on the thing that you know that works. I find the most pleasure in that. I'm curious if that's how you feel.
Yeah. Look, I listen back at old shows and I go, I'm so flat. You know, I thought in my head it was like very dynamic, and then I hear it back and I'm like, oh, because Shikamaru is so very like almost monotone at times, and then he's got a music, and I realize I'm doing the same da 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 da, and then you're like, oh wait, and I've even done that in a session where I'm like, can I mix a couple of those up, because I feel like, you know, I should have went up maybe or did something different, and you know, but most of the time they go, no, that's great, it's good, you know, that was fine, and but with reactions, right? So when you do video games, they just have you give me 3, you know, mid-level punches to the stomach.
Right.
You know, and actually, I think a lot of times it's really easy when you do them in succession like that, because you're not going to repeat yourself.
Right.
I almost think they could build a catalog of kind of sounds, and then, well, that would put us out of a job. But which is what AI is going to do, right?
Right.
So, but the point being that you just do so many. But if you do them like I said, in repetition, you're doing 3 at a shot, big, little, small. You know.
Yeah.
This is a slap in the face. This is a, you know, knee in the groin, or, you know, wherever it is. And then you give those reactions. To the bigger picture, to what you were talking about, if you're in it, and it's a little weird with voiceover, as you know, because we're just reading line by line. You know, you're not necessarily getting a sense of the big picture all the time.
Right.
But you know your character, and if you've been doing it for a little bit, and the hardest thing I think is the 2 or 3 line characters that they have us throw in, you know, because
always,
because you've got like, well, what is this guy really going to sound like? You know, you're really trying to make that up, and then it's like you've got 3 words like, yes, I can, and you're like, how do I make that and make it not sound like Shikamaru, right?
Right.
So now I lost my whole train.
Well, that's where having that stock or that practice and that library to fall back on really comes in handy, when you're like, I can't reinvent the wheel here.
Yes.
This is guard number 4. I don't need to, you know, he doesn't need to have this life where he was a, you know, a vigilante fighting crime. It's like, I know what they want, and I know how to make it sound like what they're trying to achieve here.
That's right. Well, that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
It's not just listening, it's listening to your director, and, you know, okay, we can do something like that. Or especially when you've got like an established character in the show, and then you're trying to do something else so that they can just fill in.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, when you're in it, when I'm Shikamaru and I'm doing my Shikamaru thing, I got sidetracked because I was saying, you know, it's hard to do in voiceover, because you're not necessarily have the other person right there feeding you lines. But when you're in your thing, it'll come out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you don't have to worry so much that like that punch sounded the same, as long as you're being authentic in the moment to that character that you've created and that you've been working on. So
trusting that too, just trusting your homework and trusting the years that you've put in on, especially a character like Shikamaru.
Right. Well, like 19 years for Shikamaru. Wow, yeah, I mean, it's like every once in a while we get a new director in or something, and it's like, you know, can we play you back a voice sample so you can. Are you
if you don't know it by now.
Yeah. It's wait, you just heard me do it.
Right.
Are you saying that? Wait a minute. I think I'm definitely the expert on that. You know,
at this point, I am the reference, and then you follow that.
Ryan, who directs a lot of our shows, when he first started, he was just like, I love working with him, because he's just like, let's just bang it out. And he's like an engineer, and so but he'll just like. Yeah, let's. Oh, every once, you know, he'll have notes and stuff every once in a while, but for the most part, he and I can get through a session because we're like thinking the same thing. We're on the same page. It's so easy, like with him, when we work, because he's like, I'm just gonna let you do what you do. I'm gonna kind of nudge you in different directions where I think, like, if you don't know the back part of it, or you know, if you need more context because, like, my performance is too big or something, and it's like, the context here is that. You know, we're in this situation. And then I'm like, oh, great. Okay, totally. Because I had information I didn't have. So he and I just like, I I mean, we can crank through episodes like nothing. And then there's, other directors that want to tweak every word.
They want to put their stamp on it.
And I'm not saying like I'm not doing the script. I'm saying you need to say drag. It's like, no.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, I think, at times.
Because you want to make them happy. You want to make everybody.
Right.
And, and you also have to, there's a little bit of, you have to stand up for yourself too. A little bit. For the most part, you don't.
Very true.
Yeah, everybody knows more than me when I'm in the booth. That's the way I kind of approach it.
Sure.
So if they need me to do something, then I'm like, absolutely, I will try it. And then I might say like, can we try it like this? Because it seems more like what Shikamaru would do in that situation.
Right.
And then you do it and they're like, yeah, that's better. 90% of the time. So,
well,
but most of the time I don't have to do that. And everybody over at Studiopolis has been, for that show, every director we've had has been fantastic. So,
well, that's great. And I think that goes to a point of what you were saying is sometimes you get new directors and by far you understand the character more. You may not see the big picture and you might be like, oh, you don't know what's happening in the next episode, so you're saying this now, but you're actually lying. Like, oh, obviously I wouldn't know that, so thank you for that information.
Yes, right. No, that's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
But I think there is a bit of trust at that point when you've been so seasoned into the character to have at least an inclination. It's kind of like doing live action television where they bring in different directors and they have a little bit of a vision of how they want the style to be, but most of the actors are they're doing their thing.
Yeah,
and
you're shepherding your character. You're responsible for your tone.
Right.
Like you know what that tone of that show, whatever you were directed for from the first episode.
Right.
Like, although it is funny how characters do change in shows, and maybe that's a testament to a good show versus a bad show. And like when you look at like Happy Days, for example, like watch the early episodes of Happy Days. Sorry, this is an old guy reference. Sorry, but Potsy is like Richie's best friend. He's the one that kind of gets them in trouble a little bit, and then by the end of the series, it's like Potsy is functionally a moron. Like he can't. Like, how does this guy eat breakfast? He can't. Like, what is a bowl? How does a spoon work?
Right.
Like he is so dumb. They all went from like Ralph Malph is the funny guy to Ralph Malph is the funny guy. Like it just like, and all it's sort of they just went, like and Fonzie too, like snapping on the jukebox and it plays, snapping your fingers, and these girls come in. It's like he's magic. He turned into a wizard, somewhere when it was just a guy who had a motorcycle in the beginning. Right. It is funny. So all of that I said about it's like it does happen, but it's up to you to keep it true to yourself and what you want to be doing with the character. And not let it get out of hand.
Very true. Do you have, I have it for many different characters. For Shikamaru, do you have a line that comes to you to always get into character or voice, or do you not even need that at that point? Like, do you have...
I probably don't need it, but I have a catchphrase, so it's the perfect, what a drag.
Very true.
Oh, man. And then I got the placement and everything, and then I can just talk that way. Actually, if you get a cameo from me, that's what you get is about 5 minutes of... me complaining about whatever you wanted me to talk about.
It's perfect. I love that is a
it.
thing now that people can get. Like, that is such a beautiful way of personalizing an experience, especially for these people who can't go to conventions, to connect on that way. And it is, I know you specifically, you really make it worth somebody's while when somebody reaches out.
You paid $5 for the show. I gotta, and then those are not $5. That's expensive. So I'm like, I'm going to give you the full dog and pony show, baby. I'm going to make you regret. You'll be like, is this... Wait, what? I don't have 40 minutes. What is going on? Like, he's still talking.
This is a podcast. You're sending podcasts of Shikamaru to people through cameo.
No, reality, my wife, JM, she was looking up like average time of cameos and stuff. So she looks up like Brian, and it's like 3 minutes, or something like that. And Michael Yurchek, and it's like 2 minutes, and Miley Flanagan, it's like 1.5 minutes. Because she's just happy birthday, believe it. You can do it. And they're pretty succinct. And then she goes, and that's average time, you know.
Right.
It's like everybody was around 3 to 4 minutes, and then my average time was like 9 minutes.
Oh my God.
It might not have been, it might have been 8 minutes or something, but it's like, that means I do ones that are like 20 minutes long, and you know,
That's the average.
it's,
I love it.
don't buy
I
a
love
cameo if you're not serious about it. That's
Right.
all I'm-
Yes.
But
You're
I,
in
you
a-
know, over that, I've kind of come into like, I have like, you know, certain themes that I go off of. Like, so
Right.
you get a lot of birthdays. So I've got like 20 different things that Shikamaru can complain about birthdays. And then I kind of weave them together, and then I weave in like details of their life and stuff, the people that had requested it.
Yeah.
And then there we go. It's,
Get your cameo today, folks.
Yeah, it's
Link
not-
in the bio.
yeah, I should probably say I'm only doing 3-minute cameos now.
Right. Now you've created the expectation
That's
that it's
right,
going to be a
that's
10, 20-minute
Right,
cameo. But
exactly,
no,
yeah.
that's very generous and kind of you. And, you know, just knowing how you are, it at the risk of getting into the origin story here, but
No, you
were
can.
you that type of kid here where you just had that giving nature to yourself, or were you always playful, or is that how you found art, through wanting to just be really expressive and supportive? Like, where did that personality come from as a kid?
I was the little kid that would, when I was 3 or 4, that would act out the entire Wizard of Oz in front of my grandparents. And
The whole thing.
Yeah, I would like, and I'd walk around. And I go, "You're the scarecrow, so when I point to you, you're gonna do this," and then like, and I would do this whole directed thing, and and I'd be the star of the show, and and they would actually like. Other relatives would come over and they go, "Tom, come in and do the Wizard of Oz."
Do the thing.
And I'm like, "Okay," And I didn't have props or anything, but it was just, as cute as a little kid can do that.
Right.
And then I got a little older and I was like, "I'm not doing anything."
I need to get paid for this.
Yeah. Well, I was always the whole thing was I was from Minnesota, so origin story. Grew up in the suburbs of Minnesota. It was very much. It was in the 80s, so I was very much like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or, that kind of, definitely that Chicago vibe, but we're in Minneapolis, but it's very similar. That Breakfast Club, that high school and Breakfast Club looks just like my high school in Minneapolis or West St. Paul.
No kidding.
That same, built in the 70s. Generic, big
the library, and all.
Yeah, we had a pretty big library, and so it's just like that was any 80s movies, Pretty in Pink, that kind of thing. John Hughes era, that was definitely my high school for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, so I totally related to all of that stuff. But I just for the longest time I didn't know anybody who acted. We didn't know anybody in our family who was an actor. That just seemed like knowing an astronaut or something, right? It exists in the world, but I don't know how you would go about doing it or whatever. And I did plays in junior high and high school and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, what do I want to do? If I can't, I'd love to be an actor, but so does everybody, right? So
Sure.
at one point I started going like I went really hard down the forest ranger thing, like when I was in junior high going into high school. I was in the Boy Scouts. I was in Cub Scouts, and then I was in Boy Scouts, but I also worked at this nature center that was near our house. I built an igloo and slept in it. We used to do...
you get a badge for that?
No, that was with the nature center. That wasn't with Boy Scouts. And we did Boundary Waters canoe trips every year with our church and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, I want to be a forest ranger. That's what I want to be. I think that's what I'm going to do. And, you can take forestry classes in college and the whole thing. And I had this idea of, working on a fire tower with my dog and my Jeep and, just kind of like a cup of coffee and looking
in the
over
woods,
world.
in the cabins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I can do that. And I did that. I mean, like,
it does sound great. I gotta say.
We went camping and did that whole thing all the time. And then, go to a national park and you'd see a ranger and it's like, I want to be a ranger. Yes.
Yep. Just the name, the word ranger just sounds so badass.
Hat. You get the crazy hat. It's so much fun. And I remember we were getting ready for a church trip. We go up to the Boundary Waters, Minnesota, and we're going to go for 2 weeks. Long trip for high school students, let me just say, 10th grade. And, you got to carry your canoe and you got to pack your food and you portage and canoe all day long and then make up a camp and then tear it down the next. It's work, and so we
Right.
did a lot of prep for that. And one of the guys, the leaders, his name was Al Heine, and he was like a math genius. He was to me it was, because I'm in high school, he's in college and he's studying math. It's like, oh my God, you're just next level. Like,
Yeah.
And then and he goes, there's a lot of math in forestry, don't you? And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, like a big chunk of forestry is like if a seed can make this many, and if you're managing a forest, you have to know about, ranges and all of these. It's all like calculus. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, because
I'm out.
I'm the worst at. I was good at like biology, life sciences, stuff like that, but the math part of it, I was like, well, I'll be out in the woods with my dog and the Jeep. Don't you remember? I don't need to know math.
I just got to enjoy the outdoors. I don't need to do anything. I just gotta be there.
I don't see a fire. That was a good day. And so then I just kind of came to this realization is like the chances. And then I found out too, the forestry service, the United States Forestry Service hires like 6 people a year.
Allie's sister's actually a park ranger. She just became one, so
probably took her years of being on waiting lists and doing all sorts of stuff. I mean,
right.
I applaud that. But anyway, I went, my chances of actually getting to work at like Yellowstone or something are the same as being an actor. And then I thought, I can be an actor and I can play a forest ranger. I can play a doctor. I can play a world-class mathematician. I don't have to make up my mind what job I want to do. I do the one job where I can be every job. And now I'm a ninja.
There you go.
So that's kind of where I came to it. And like I said, I'd always participated in theater when it was available, like in junior high and high school. And then I even did community theater and stuff. And, next step was go to college and become an actor. And my dad was like, well, he can always be a salesman. Like, even if you go to college and you get a theater degree, you can be a salesman because he's got personality,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I got a teaching degree, a BS, which is in theater, acting, directing. So the idea would be that if I wasn't going to make it as an actor, I could teach, or I could work in a high school, I could direct plays. A lot of my friends ended up doing that. I don't know why I didn't quite get sucked down that path, but I didn't.
Teaching.
Just as a way, like I could be. My sister-in-law, she worked for a private school in Los Angeles. She was also an actress, and I met her because we were on the Disney cruise ship together, and then I met her sister, and then we got married.
I remember the story, yes.
But anyway, Jen, that one of her big jobs, she'd work at Disneyland, she'd work here, there, she'd do commercials, she'd do all, as an actor, you're trying to do as many things you can do. And she worked for a private school in like La Cañada, Flint Ridge area, and she directed the plays and she wrote little things.
Teaching theater, though? Did she teach theater?
Acting, yeah. And it was great, and it's a path I could have gone down, I think.
Right.
Because I taught improv for a long time. But I don't know. I just was keep moving forward, and I always had like a day job, but it wasn't teaching, and I don't know quite, because I kind of felt maybe more like you can't just walk away from teaching. Like you commit to those kids.
Yeah.
And to if you're going to be there for a semester and stuff, if you get offered a sitcom, you can. Whereas like if you're a waiter, you're like, bye.
See you later.
Somebody cover my shift.
I've been waiting.
I'm out the door. See you, losers. And then of course. It gets canceled, or it never, or they call you up and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're not on hold anymore."
And now you got to go back to your job and say, "Remember when I ran out of here and quit? I need that job back."
Well, I was never that, but we all knew guys that just quit jobs. Like,
that was me. I did that. Oh,
well,
man.
you have to. You have to be. You don't have to say, "Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way
out." No.
But you have to be in a job where you go, "I will drop it all and leave." I was working in production, and I got an offer to go on the Disney Cruise Line ended up being like 8 months, and I was like, "Bye." Yeah. Like I'd rather do this than that. And even though this is doing very well for me, but I want to do this. So, And
it's surrounding the thing that you want to do rather than it being a supplement for trying to do the thing you want. Even though I always say this to a lot of people, like if there's a job you can get within the industry you want to work in, I feel like for me personally and for a lot of people, it's more beneficial than doing something so far separated from what you're doing, because then you can lose that spark, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Although it's if you've ever like had a lead on a show or even a recurring or something, and then you go, hey, in order to get my SAG insurance, I got to do 3 days of extra work. It is soul crushing. It is just
that is true.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with when I was coming up. I did a couple little background things and like just make a little money or whatever. But it's just like it just grinds your heart. In that way, it's kind of a little bit. I ended up working. So we were Dick Clark Productions. So we did like American Music Awards and Golden Globes, and we produce all these award shows. So I was around it. I knew I was seeing people, and mostly he's more on the music side. We did a lot more music stuff. So I felt like, I'm in Hollywood. I'm still connected. I am standing next to Cher in a press room, was waiting. And then you go, wow, that's Cher, right? And you just keep your together, and but. Now again, I lost my train of thought.
No, but that's I agree.
But they're not doing they're not doing scripted comedy, or they're not doing a drama. Like, oh my God, if you were like a grip on Game of Thrones, I would kill myself. Like, I want to be on that show. I can't just, you know what I mean? I'm gonna carry these lights over.
I know.
And there's nothing to that, but it's just that I want to be that. So I don't want to be Cher. So it's fun to appreciate Cher.
Sure.
When you're standing in the press room and you're trying to hand her the award so she can get her picture taken. And it's like, great, I'll do that. That's fun.
To your point, and so I was gonna agree to disagree, but I actually do agree more with yours. Well, two part of it. I agree because, well, no, you are around it, but it's not the thing that you necessarily want to do. So I think that is a great way of staying connected. Yes. Although, and to the other point of it, which I was gonna say, is sometimes those grips, they wind up on the show. Harrison Ford's career was he was a carpenter, and he found himself, in the presence of whoever. So that's another point of it.
Right.
However,
that is correct. Yep.
I did remember I had a moment when I got offered to do an understudy for a play, a musical.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, this could be a really good gig, long, and I'd be understudying for one of the main characters, but it would pull me away.
FYI, understudying, oh my God, is the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yes.
I've only done it like twice. It's because you're doing all this prep and trying to be there, and you have to watch the show, and you're seeing the guy in it, and you're like, okay, he's going to be gone for 2 weeks, so maybe I'll get in for. It's hard. Yeah. Well, I knew I was going in on mine, but it was like, it's such a different thing than, hey everybody, here's the table read, we're all in this, you know. From the beginning, and you're going to make your own choices and stuff, as opposed to replicating somebody else's performance, or make sure you don't screw it up because our show is really good right now.
Right.
You're like,
you're a chameleon mercenary is what it's kind of
exactly.
like.
If you can do that, I think you can do anything. I would not say I'm necessarily good at it, but
no, so me either.
I'm just saying you need a lot of praise for doing an understudy thing. It's
I commend all of the understudies out there. That it's
of being near it. It's that 8 feet from stardom, like they talk about with background singers. It's just like, it grinds your heart.
That's what I felt. That was what it was for me. I said, I'm pursuing some other things, and if I'm going to pull myself away from doing, like, not only am I going to be envious of that person, not jealous, envious that I want to be doing that. Yes. It's also removing my opportunity to do something else by committing to this opportunity here. So I had to walk away.
If you say no to it and then you don't get another audition for 4 months, you're like, I should have done it. But
I've played that lottery many times.
You don't know. Yeah, you know what I mean? You just don't know what's in front of you. You really don't. And then you wake up one day and you're, 50s and like, wait a minute. is this career going to take off yet? What's happening?
Oh.
It's like I'm kind of there, but I was supposed to be on a sitcom at some point, and it just did. Because when you're 22, you think that's going to happen.
That was what I thought.
it.
100%.
No, and then you get to be my age, in your 50s, and you're like, wait a second, because you always think the next opportunity could come next week, next month, next year, and then all of a sudden those years start adding up, and you're like,
yeah.
Wait, I didn't have that. I had this little thing and that little. Like, if you look at my IMDb and you put it into a 10-year period, you'd be like, wow. But, you do it over 30 years and you're like, oh.
Right. Right. Well, I absolutely understand that. And to be on something as prolific as you are, I feel like many people might classify this as the blessing and the curse, because it's like you're known for that one thing and you have that one thing and you feel so defined
happy
by it. But on the flip side of it is such an impactful. I hope you understand at the very least. It is
I don't feel pigeonholed. I just wish that Shikamaru, I was as successful with every other aspect of my career as I was with Shikamaru.
Right.
And I really get joy from that. I really appreciate it too, because it was like, we didn't get any attention for 18 years.
I know.
Miley would go out and do, who plays Naruto, she would go out and do conventions and stuff like that. And I did one, because Miley said she couldn't do it, I got to go to Australia and New Zealand. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And
I'll take the trip.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And that was like 10 years ago. And then COVID. It wasn't until COVID that we started doing the whole convention thing. And, Funko Pops, that kind of phenomenon.
Blew up everything.
Yeah.
Changed everything.
But before that, it was like I did the show. The beauty of Naruto for me, it's been on for, 19 years. We haven't really had a break until this year, so like 5 months ago.
Wow.
And no matter what, you have ups in your career and downs in your career, the whole thing. But for the last 19 years, I could say I was a working actor.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wasn't making a ton of money, but I always had that. There were times when I had 3, 4, 5 different anime shows going, but I always had Naruto. And then there were times when I'd do a commercial or this or that, and I you'd lose your agent or whatever, and you're just like, I always have Naruto. And it was just like, and it was a blessing. Like, it was just a way to feel like, oh yeah, I'm on a series and people like it and it's fun. And again, we didn't feel that, because I'll tell you, when I first started during pandemic, Miley, we're friends. We go way back to Minnesota together. We did improv comedy at a nightclub called the Brave New Workshop in Minneapolis.
Wow.
And that was like professional paid. I was part of the main stage company there, and we would do shows like 5, 6 shows a week, and get paid to do it. It wasn't a lot, but it was more than you would. I think. Well, for the time, it was like a good part-time job, like a really good part-time job. In today's, if I told you the money, it wouldn't make sense, because you'd be like, that's nothing. But for the time,
inflation,
it was okay. When you're paying $500 for an apartment,
yeah,
and you're splitting it with another dude,
so you're actually paying 100 or 250.
Yeah, right, exactly. You're like, oh, that's totally doable.
Yeah.
So we worked together doing that. And so she called me up basically to say, do you want to do this Naruto panel thing? Because we're in COVID, people are depressed. Let's do a thing like for the fans. And she goes, I got a guy who's going to put it all together. So, and I was like, sure, whatever you need, whatever you want, And so we did this big thing. We had a panel of us on there. I think Brian was on that. And I think Mary Elizabeth, who was our director, was on it. A bunch of people. Steve Bloom, who's Orochimaru. And Steve Bloom is one of the biggest names in anime.
Yeah.
And, or in voiceover. I'll give him that.
Wolverine, sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. He's
Tsunami,
got the Guinness Book of World Records for the number of video games that he's been in. So,
really? I think that is true, right? That is a fact.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So anyway, we did this nice little panel thing, and then Miley said, well, let's do another one. And I was like, okay. And then she said, we should do a Streamily. And I go, I don't have anything to sign. I don't have pictures, I wouldn't even know how to start. And she goes, don't worry about it. We're gonna take care of it. You know, well, and so somebody at Streamily made some pictures for me to sign, and you know, I think I made like $200 more than my costs for getting the pictures printed and stuff like that. And then I had pictures, so that was also leftovers and stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, I just made like $200.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And I was like, I never left my house, and you know, the whole thing was fantastic. And I thought, because I really thought, like, nobody wants my autograph. I don't know what and nobody's gonna want to pay.
You're very humble.
You know, like that. Well, you got to remember, 19 years.
I know.
Nobody, every once in a while, we'd run into a fan or something who knew the show, and I'd be like, you know, there you go. And then say the thing, and then they'd get a
party
kick
trick,
out of it. And yeah, exactly. You know, and I used to say, like, if you're under 15, I'm kind of famous. But that's not true anymore, because now they grew up.
No.
So it was it's crazy. And, but like I said, nobody paid attention to any of that stuff. And anytime I tried to, like, hey, could I go to a convention, or was there possible? And they're like, well, we got Naruto from Naruto. We don't need the second bananas, the Shikamaru's, the, you know, even the like, well, Sasuke, I think, always went out, and Kate, the three, you know, the big three.
Yeah,
Kakashi's, sure. And they only did a few events. Like, there wasn't a lot of stuff to do.
It wasn't like it is now.
Oh,
no,
it's crazy
not
now.
at all.
Yeah, and it's still a challenge to get invited to a convention, but it's not like it was.
No.
And when we started doing it, it was just like overwhelming. And then it was like this, and then, you know, when you tie that to a Funko Pop, it was like, wow, all of a sudden everybody just became this thing, and it was really crazy. And so now it's like at the sort of the end of that career of Shikamaru, because, well, we're on hiatus. Who knows when it's going to come back? It's going to be
right.
You know. And I've heard, well, the studio said like would be a year, but then I've read some stuff on can't rely on that stuff online, but they're saying that because they're focusing on other projects, it might be like 2 or 3 or even 5 years before they get back to it.
Whoa!
And it was like,
is that Boruto though? Is Boruto done? You've completed the manga. What's in the manga?
There's new manga, which is called Blue Vortex. I do voiceover, people. Hello. Blue Vortex.
Right.
And that's the sort of like Naruto Shippuden. That's the next step. The 3-year break, just very much like Shippuden was.
Between the end of Boruto and Boruto Shippuden, right? That's kind of how it is. Right. Okay.
Correct. Basically that's how it works. So, and a lot changes, but that's a lot of spoiler alert there.
Well, okay, I'll do a quick spoiler
here. Is that what
here.
you wanted to do?
Yes. Okay, so spoiler alert here. If you've not read the manga, and we'll cut this out if this isn't even true for the manga, but I believe it is. So you've been warned here, guys. Take a quick break. I'll snap my fingers when to come back. In the manga, Shikamaru becomes Hokage. Correct.
8th Hokage.
The 8th Hokage. So that is in the manga, correct? That is canonized. And that is so that's what's supposed to happen in the next arc of Boruto, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
I have not voiced any 8th Hokage yet.
Right,
but,
okay.
But I've been signing stuff number 8 in the corner.
Number 8. Yeah. I mean, all right. So everybody, well, actually, wait a second here, folks. If you're still in the spoiler zone, but so was that kind of like for you as someone being a part of the cast and having recorded this? Was that surprising? And did that because that says a lot about the importance of the character? I think that is only reserved for like the top dogs. Those things, we're talking Naruto, Kakashi, and those and his father. Those are the only people we really see go through that motion. You know.
Yeah.
So did that make you feel any sort of things when you saw that? When you read that? Whenever it happened? When you were told that?
They've made it a big deal because the entire show. The only thing, as far as a goal that Naruto, the character, had was, I want to become Hokage. That was his number one goal in life.
His super objective, yeah.
Super objective. That was that, and he kept saying it, and it was just like, oh my God, stop saying it.
Right.
A lot of people say it, but he, I'm going to make this happen, no matter what. And then he did, which is a great message for kids, by the way. Although I don't know, because, if you can say, I'm going to play in the NBA, and now I've grown up and I'm 5'7", and I'm going to play in the, Well, you could. There are guys that have been pretty
Muggsy
short.
Bogues,
Yeah,
shout
that's
out to
right.
us short guys, yeah.
But your parents going, "You're not going to be a Hokage." I'm sorry, you're just going to
Yeah.
need to, fine, be it.
You are not a ninja.
Maybe you should take
I'm...
shop or something. There's a drill press waiting for you down the corner, so at the factory. Yeah. So they made it. That is the brass ring of the show, right?
Right.
And so to have the different people that have occupied that seat. Now, what's interesting in the manga is that Shikamaru isn't really embracing the title of the Eighth Hokage as you would expect him to do.
Absolutely.
And there's also a thing of, like, he's so smart that he actually knows what's going on. And there's clues, or there's what do they call Easter eggs?
Easter eggs, right?
That he doesn't believe he's the Eighth Hokage. It's hard to explain, but in the manga, again, spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear this, don't. Basically, the whole the beginning of the show is Naruto is gone, presumed dead, murdered by Boruto. Boruto, most people don't think of him as the son of Naruto. They think Kawaki is the son of Naruto because they're being mind messed with, like Madara's thing. Not Madara, but that
the Genjutsu, Tsukunomi, whatever it is.
You know what it is.
I know my Naruto.
I could bother to learn all these jutsus and stuff, but so everybody's kind of under this spell. Now I can't think of the girl with the glasses, Sasuke's daughter.
Not Shikida.
She's all on the she's all on the case. Like she's going to clear Boruto and that kind of thing. Or she's trying to. I don't know if she's
Isn't that how
him.
the manga starts? Isn't that literally the first
that's
pages?
That's the premise. But I'm just saying, if you're waiting for the show, it's not.
Right.
It starts with Shikamaru.
It starts at the ending, though, is what I'm saying,
the
right?
Eighth Hokage, and then and everybody's gone. And where did Naruto go? Naruto's dead, presumed dead.
Right.
Naruto's in another dimension. He's been pulled into another dimension where he's been trapped for 3-4 years or whatever it is. But so anyway, how do we know that Shikamaru may know that Naruto is not dead and that he's just keeping the seat warm? They do a lot of scenes where they're standing in front of the Mount Rushmore of the Hokages.
The Hokage, Mount Hokage, whatever that's called.
Shikamaru has been acting Hokage for 3 years, and his face is not on the mountain. So it's kind of like, I'm going to take this title, but I know that I'm not the Eighth Hokage.
The acting boss, as they say.
But now, in the show, too, like, Kakashi was an acting Hokage. Nobody had to die for a Kakashi to become Hokage.
Right.
So it's like, up to that point, everybody had to die in order to
move on. Yeah.
To move. Then they brought
no
in
term elections.
Yeah. Once Lady Tsunade came in after the fourth Hokage died.
Fourth Hokage. Yeah.
And then Orochimaru killed him. If I'm getting my history.
You are.
And
Absolutely.
then Lady Tsunade came in, which added a whole new element to the show because now Naruto's boss was a girl. So that ended up like he had. There is a little sexist thing that kind of runs through Japanese animation.
Sure.
I'm not telling you any news. But I thought she ended up being a really strong foil for him, and that was good. I think he learned to respect women a little bit out of that, which you don't get that out of a lot of the other anime stuff. This show did do that, so I applaud them for kind of making them grow up a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then also having a really strong female lead. Tamari is a great female lead,
right.
And again, maybe this is all too inside baseball.
No, I think everyone's gonna love this more than
except for the people that never watch Naruto.
Well, I think there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah,
if anybody here is interested in anything that I do by any margin, they're way more interested in what you do. So let's just be clear.
And I love what you do. I watched your little reel and stuff, and it's like you're doing everything, and that's really fantastic. And live on camera, that's the real thing. It's funny, we get asked at conventions all the time, like, well, how do I become a voice actor? It's like, I don't know. how do you become an actor is the question.
That is the question.
And then you go, what
to
will
be
you,
or not to be?
what will you do for money? And then it turns out I do voiceover for money. Like this is where I got a little bit of success.
Yeah.
But I would be on a sitcom. I would be in a movie. I would be doing a commercial. I would just like you're doing, Paul. Like
right.
You're making movies. You're doing things. You're writing scripts. Like that's the thing. Like, so when they go, I want to be a voice actor, it's like, why do you want to limit yourself? Take the whole, I don't know. It's different because for me, it was like, I just want to act. And
right.
It's like, and it's great that I don't have to memorize, but that's not why I got into voiceover, it's, and also I don't have to get into hair and makeup. And it's because I would be happy as a clam getting up at 5 a.m. to drive over to Warner Brothers, to get in a makeup chair, to do a supervillain in a Marvel movie, or even the bus driver that Spider-Man has to save. I would love, you know what I mean? That's the whole.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's like, that's the little kid a part of it. Like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I just want to do it. I just want to be in it. I want to be around it. I want to have fun. And this thing just ended up being something that I got good at. I think I'm pretty good at it. And then, it turned into something, and it took a long time. It was a slow boil, like it was like a niche thing. Like kids knew about it, and we were always big in the, but most adults would be like, it's what now? What's the name of the show? Naruto? And,
so you voice a ninja? What's going on here?
Yeah, what is it?
He's how old?
Why is there snakes coming out of that guy? But in a way it was kind of cool because it's like a private club. Kids knew, nobody else did. Parents didn't know.
Right.
They didn't know nothing, Yep. And it was kind of like their thing. It was their own private, thing that they had. And, a lot of the anime people, we are kind of and I'm throwing myself in there too, because this is the kind of kid I was, the little bit of, socially awkward. And, I was, as you maybe could tell, I was obnoxious as a kid because I thought being funny would be my way to fit in.
Preaching to the choir.
It's not always, tone it down, Tom, was the, but I'm just saying it's the, it's the kids that, they're the good kids, and they're smart and they're funny and they're shy and they, they don't quite fit in, and they, they're just such sweet, sweet kids, as opposed to like, there's a lot of Star Wars fans, but you're a wrestling fan, that kind of is a little something for you. Or if you're into rock bands,
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. These kids are, they're into storytelling, and they're into depth of character and all sorts of stuff.
They've got heart.
They expect a lot out of their animation. They don't trivialize it, and they don't. And that's why I think like shows like Naruto and Studiopolis, who take it very seriously, who don't treat it like it's just a kid's show, or it's just an anime dub and we're doing the box set and who cares. And I've done shows where it's been like, let's just crank this out because it's got to get to DVD, and I don't know if anybody will ever see it. And they were like, nope, that sync has got to,
we're getting it good.
Fix that out, and we're gonna, or that the tone of that has to be different, or they don't just crank them out, which is. But okay, I was getting away because I was really praising our audience, which is
anyway, who are very well deserving of the praise,
and very sensitive, and and I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying we have a lot of those people.
Absolutely.
That and I think it's the good kids. If I had kids, I would want them to be like that, the nerdy, kind of weeby, reading books and watching.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, kudos to Studiopolis on the casting too, because
my God. Well, they cast like everybody who had a name in the beginning, not necessarily name in anime and
in the anime world. Yeah. Before I forget this point too, about the acting thing, being an actor, I think, and it's kind of the way I always philosophized, if that's the right word, it took me a while to really accept the word voice actor. I still have like a love-hate relationship with the word voice actor.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that's like, I'm just an actor.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Like you only hear You only hear the
Especially,
voice.
Paul. I think
Well-
you're really doing what many of us set out to do, which is to do it all. You're
Right.
doing a
Well-
lot of it, and you're doing a lot of it very well. I will tell you. So
I thank you. That's very kind coming from you, and I appreciate that. But I also believe nowadays that's the only way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I can only accredit any success that I have now by thinking of myself as an actor. And like you just said, this was one of those things that clicked, you know?
Yeah.
So I went down the hole.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And but
There-
my brain,
there's something there. It's interesting, and then pursue it down that way. You know.
Yeah.
And then I think today too, with like the TikTok and the Instagrams and all that stuff, that to me is like what silent movies were at the turn of the century, right?
absolutely.
So out of that, somebody's going to figure that medium out, and you're going to
Yep.
get a Buster Keaton, and you're going to get a Charlie Chaplin. But right now it's Mr. Beast, and it's
Yeah.
but there will be that actor that gets 3 or 4 of his friends and does a comedy bit, and it's going to hit, and they're just going to, and
And they're probably
that's gonna
out there.
Yeah, well,
We
no,
just don't know them yet.
and it might be us, but I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like it'll be that Saturday Night Live spark or something where it's like that group of guys is doing it, and it's kind of what Lonely Island.
Yes,
they
yes.
were doing stuff like that, and then they got
YouTube.
noticed by
SNL.
and then they blew up, right? So
Yep.
it's like, and then they ended up on SNL. Although we're getting to the point where you're more famous on YouTube,
On YouTube than
Instagram,
in
and
SNL.
TikTok than you would be by making an appearance on SNL. And it's
100%.
we're very close, and they still want to do the TV because for some reason that TV means so much more.
Yeah.
It does. It has weight. It has gravitas. That being a YouTube star doesn't. But YouTube stars are buying Maseratis. So
They're moving
you-
into the LA mansions right now. The
you're not.
YouTubers
Yeah,
are.
you're not doing that if you're doing a guest spot on Young Sheldon.
No. You're not doing that if you're at the height of your voiceover career either.
Right.
If you're at the height of it,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it is a way different landscape than what it was, or even
and who knows
everything
what it's
is
gonna
changing.
end up looking like. But it is crazy. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, the barrier to entry is
Very small.
well, you do what you want, and
Yeah.
throw the spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks. Like try anything.
Yeah, you can
and
buy any
some-
microphone for
and
$100,
and
or
somebody's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing it. I'm just saying, there's going to be a Charlie Chaplin. There's going to be a Laurel and Hardy or something, or even a Rudolph Valentino or something that's going
Right.
to come out of this that is going to be like, wow. And then the same way we can think about like the silent era, like all these guys rushing out to California to like
Yeah.
set up the camera, let's drain the dam, and we'll get the boat, and then you fall into mud, and then I'll pick you
Yeah.
up, and then we'll have the cops chase you, and they're just like making it up on the fly and doing all these little bits and tricks, and it was like it was a huge phenomenon, and that's what we're dealing with right now. And it's
Right.
like, but I always tell kids that when we talk at panels and stuff, I go, it's up to you. It's an open door. Take it.
yeah,
Don't ask me like, how do I make it? It's like, you tell me. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna do it. You're the one that understands this technology far more than I do. And I don't think the old world of hopefully people will always go to education and like
right.
because you should know, just so you know the history of stuff and how things work, and
Yeah.
and you should know what theater is all about and why we do it, and it's a lot of stuff doesn't necessarily appeal to you, but take one semester of it, and then at least you'll have a basis so we can talk about it,
Yeah.
and I mean of that particular class, I took costuming. But I understand costumes a lot better and how they're
Yeah.
made and what the function of them is and stuff. But it's like it's nothing I'm never going to use but it's good information for me to have. Anyway,
It's
education,
very good
really
information,
great.
and
But then get out there with your friends and grab a camera and make
Just
stuff
do
up
something.
and,
I always believed that, and that was the way that I pursued it. No one is going to do it for you.
That's
The
right.
opportunities are in your hands at this point in time. You never know what door will
you have
open.
you
So
have a platform. You can reach thousands of people. Just push of a button, and
it's crazy.
And then you can hopefully build on that and make it bigger and bigger and stronger, and
The thing that I've realized recently, and talking right now is really enlightening me, is as much as it is about your talent, and I believe Steve Martin said, like, be so good that they can't ignore you, or something like that. Something to that degree. I believe that. I mean, even Bryan Cranston said something to that effect as well. You know, if you're so talented and you're unbelievable, you put yourself up into the ether, like someone's gonna find you.
Yeah.
I do believe that.
That's right.
But the
build
caveat,
a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door.
yes.
If you're doing something, and I think, well, we've already seen it. Like, these YouTube people get on TV shows and they end up in movies, and they end up doing stuff, right? So they built this following, and then they're using it as a stepping stone into other things. So
I agree, and we've seen the success. I mean, like that guy King Bach or whatever. You know, these TikTokers, the Vine celebrities that are now
which a lot of times I have no idea. I'm watching a show or something, and my wife will go, "Oh, that girl she did that thing on TikTok," and I was like, "What?"
Addison Rae, she was in that
why
movie
is she in that
Thanksgiving.
movie?
You know, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Well, but you know what? Good for her. You know,
yes, good for her. And there is no rhyme or reason to this, but I will say this. For sustainability and for a long-lasting career, you need to understand the thing that everybody that's behind you that are helping make this thing, that we all appreciate. Yeah. If you can't hang and you don't know the lingo, if you bring up a reference, like someone I was in a session the other day and we were joking. I mean, not that I'm a spring chicken by any means, but he was telling me he was in a session with somebody, my director, and he was like, I brought up the Beastie Boys, and they were like, what's a Beastie Boy? And I was like, ooh, that hurt my soul. That hurt my soul. And not that you need to know everything, but I'll tell you what, I know the classics. I know the things that are not of my generation.
Yeah.
When you say Happy Days and you say Cheers and you say MASH, I know that stuff because I understand the appreciation of the craft, and I would go and seek out those things. So that's why I find myself able to resonate with people who are a little bit older than me, that are the people that are making these things happen, the people that are producing it, the people that are directing it. It makes it somebody that goes, you know, Paul, that we worked with, he's actually a pretty cool guy. He knows about this stuff. He watches sports. He's got a life outside of this, and I like talking with him. I like hanging with him.
Well, even more than that, Paul, is like it gives you an index cards of famously, like Buster Keaton, silent film star,
right,
would do bits. Right, he was what they called in the industry a gag man or a bit guy, and he'd work on other people's shows or other movies and bit. But they would remember, like, all these little things about, like, oh, you could do the shtick with the, with the chicken,
the forks,
and everybody kind of knew it. It was like a shorthand. Knowing, like, for comedy, like when you're putting together something original or whatever, like to realize that you're playing off of, oh, that bit. There's only, what's the thing? There's only five plot lines in the world.
Right.
They all come from the Greeks. Yeah. And every joke has been ever been told. It's just told in a different way, and you change the subject of the joke, and that's it. Like, but you have to. I think what you're saying and what I'm trying to build on is that you have to appreciate. You got to know what the reference is, right? Go watch a bunch of Buster Keaton movies. You'll be surprised how much you do think it's funny. Like, a lot of the stuff that I don't think translates in a way is like the talky stuff. The early talking movies. They just don't. They're just the silent. That clown stuff works. You can figure it out. Like they're telling a whole story without saying a word, which is a beautiful thing too. You should know how to do that. Yeah. You may not like to do that, but you should know how to do it, or at least understand it. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Anytime you can take a film history class or a TV history class or a theater history class, that's why I always think, like, for me too, 4 years in college was to grow up.
Right.
Like, I was done with high school, but high school was very high school, and I hated high school. College I loved, and it was just like, you do all sorts of things, and some stuff you like, and so, like, I had teachers that were very method, with the approach to acting, and there are others that were a bag of tricks, which I think is my style, which is very English, which is like you need this, you take that, and you
take what works,
whatever
for you.
Works for you, right? And and you kind of hodgepodge as a style. And, that's a beautiful thing. But I had to go through, like, writing out, my back history and my story and Improv has been probably the greatest teacher I've ever had, both
Yes.
in doing it and teaching it, and when I was originally learning it, because that moment before, all that stuff that you would take your journal and write your actor, where what are your wants, your greater wants, the whole thing.
Yeah.
You got to come up with that in a second, and when you start practicing that, man, you just make decisions really quick. And now, if you've got good instincts, those are going to be good decisions, and those are going to get you jobs, and you're going to have a fantastic career. So anyway, the more educate, just do it all is my advice.
I agree. Having that, you made me just think of something that I think might make you laugh. I hope it makes you laugh. Is I was up for an original animation thing, and it's not something I got, but it did lead to something I did get later down the line.
That's always that's the dream of every actor.
It is, and that is. I hope people really keep working hard, because that is that is the most true thing in this industry I've experienced in my life, is not getting the thing, but letting them know you're a good actor. Which was, I had this opportunity for the show, and I took a take on a character that I knew wasn't right, because I actually played the character like Shikamaru. And I gave him that just kind of I don't give a shit about this stuff. I had my own version of something that from just being watching media and absorbing so much. And I was like, oh, this is just like Shikamaru to me.
That's right. It's
a
14-year-old kid that rolls his eyes at everything, right?
Yes.
And that is in every American family. There is that kid, that it's just that every kid, every person goes through that. Now, some kids, it's 2 weeks, they're that way, but every teenager has that stretch where they're the guy that just, everything your mother says is, roll your eyes.
It's brilliant.
Take the trash out. But it's universal.
It is.
So when you look at our show, how many archetypes are in that show? How many caricatures are in that show? And yet they're not played as cartoony. A little like Choji's happy-go-lucky. He's a big guy. They have him eating all the time. That's a little bit of, yeah, I get it, fat people. I'm a fat person. I'm not eating all the time. It's it's like that. That's a little too on the head. And then Hinata's the shy girl. Every single one of those characters, you give me any high school, I can tell you they're in that high school.
Right.
Right? Everybody knows a Sasuke. Everybody knows a Naruto. Everybody knows a Rock Lee. Right? They may not sound or do the thing, but those are universal characters.
So true.
And if you go back to Commedia dell'arte, which you would learn about in theater class, they had stock characters, which is like the captain, the lover, the fool, right? So it's that same kind of thing. And if you can kind of understand that, and you know what button to push, right? And unless you're an impersonator, unless you're, I did Midsummer Night's Dream. I played Bottom, and my whole sort of take on it was Jackie Gleason. And so I did the entire thing with a New York accent. But when you think of Jackie Gleason in The Honeymooners, that sort of big personality, I want to play every role. I want to, I will roar that the Duke will say, let him roar again. Let him roar again. Like that. It's not quite Jackie Gleason because I have a higher voice. I have a different, but it's
your version.
It's that sort of that guy, right? And so when you do Shikamaru, it's like in your head, that's all you need is the reference.
Yeah.
But it's not Shikamaru because I'm the only Shikamaru. But it's like, but that's it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Shikamaru started off as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Keanu Reeves. And then it turned into less dude and more, Slacker was the initial kind of thing, but it was, you could almost hear Shikamaru in the early takes saying dude at the end of everything instead of what a drag. It'd be like, why do we got to hang out with him, dude? Why do we have to hang out with him? Such a drag. See? So it's like my thinking going into the booth when I was doing that was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but I didn't want to be the California guy.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to do a California accent, so I just I softened it a little bit and
It's
made it
so
more
grounded
and make it more realistic.
Yeah.
And so, but he's got that, everything's in the back. Like, why does he talk like that? Did he eat glass when he was a kid? I don't know. But and it's not my voice. My voice is this,
Right.
So it's I talk through my nose. It's like, which is funny every time. Sometimes I'll hear Shikamaru and I'm like, oh, he's talking through his nose. It's like, you hear all this.
He's the nose breather.
What is all this nose coming in? It makes for good singers up in the Midwest. They have a lot of choral arrangements that are, very good.
That are up there, right there.
Very good choirs up there in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
I sang in choir. I did all that stuff too.
Brilliant.
Sang in choir, did plays, I just did all. I was an act. I didn't. Sports wasn't my thing, and
Right.
I wasn't very good, and then so I just did a lot of theater and choir, and I didn't do band because I could never quite figure out an instrument.
Right.
Again, math. Reading music, like even I can't read music. I've taken theory and stuff. I mean, I could. To me, it's like doing a deciphering or doing a crossword puzzle. Like I can sit down and go, okay, that's D, and that's a half step, and that's a quarter note, and that people can sight read. It's like, oh my God, you're magic.
Yes.
I wish I could do that, and it's like no matter what,
I'm with you. I don't have many other talents other than acting.
Yeah.
For what it is, and I'm fine with it.
Well, you're doing
I'm
great.
fine with it.
You're doing great
And,
with
hey,
it. You just keep going, and things will happen. You just gotta,
and back at you,
just
and I
gotta believe
really.
it. You just got to believe it.
Hey, going back to the whole premise of the dang show, it's
Yeah.
you do just got to believe it, and that was what it was for
Believe
me.
it.
Yeah, it would, but that's what when I started out, and for people, the themes of Naruto, where you have to believe in yourself more than anything, despite all the things. You have to believe that there are moments now in my career where I'm like, if I 10 years ago didn't have that thing that I believed no matter what I would be successful in something as a performer, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I have moments where I go, I have to give kudos to who I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because that's the reason I'm here, not me last year.
It's
because of me 10 years ago.
Have you ever had the thought, like you're thinking back on, like how you did, and you're just like, where did I get the balls to do that? Like,
I don't know.
Where did I think that I could just move to California? Like, what was I thinking? Like, it's so stupid in hindsight. And it's like, it all worked out. Everything was, but you're like, wow, that took a lot of chutzpah, but there were things at the time saying you should do this. This is where you want to be. This is what you want to do. And it's like, but in hindsight, I don't know if Tom Gibis today would have made those, just kind of blindly stupid. But stupid, just had no idea. Like today, I would be more like, oh, don't bother that guy. Don't go talk to that person. Leave him, let him eat their lunch. This, movie star or something.
Yeah.
Tom Gibis of 25 years ago would have been like, hey, I just wanted to say I loved you in that thing. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. But you can kind of appreciate that too, like that kid that just, you want to retain a lot of that,
Yeah. I think it's important for all the performances that we give, and I think I do very much see that in your performances. Even now, seeing the Shikamaru's episodes through Boruto, I still see that youthful excitement and desire to be excellent for whatever that is or for whatever that's worth that comes through. It is one of the shows that through the test of time, and one of if not the only anime that has lasted this long and still retains the quality that it does, if not raising the bar consistently. So that's a kudos to you, and again to the cast. It's very impressive.
The story that we got to tell, and there are other shows, One Piece and Dragon Ball, but
there's 3 of them. How many TV shows are there?
And, I'm just saying there's a lot of good shows out there. I'm just glad ours was one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all the congratulations to you, and
Thank you.
Honestly, sorry to take more of your time than I promised here, but
listen, we could talk all night. I'm chatty.
I love it, dude, and hopefully
about halfway through, I was like, when are people taking this off the pod yet. They're like,
No, I think
I'll listen to Smartless now.
No, you got to stay here in Points of Experience.
Yeah, I'm
But
just
dude,
saying
Tom,
I bored your audience to death is what I did.
absolutely not. I was thoroughly entertained. I honestly didn't even know what the time was, and I was like, "Oh, I am being inconsiderate." But dude,
No,
thank you
totally
so
fine.
much for
Thank
coming
you for
on.
having me.
This was a gift, a pleasure. I hope I get to see you soon, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, your evening, and
You too.
guys, go get your cameos because they're going to be 10 minutes long. This is the endorsement.
they're
If
gonna
you
be-
use
They're gonna be
code
30
POX,
seconds.
code POX, you get the 10-minute long one. No, Tom,
I
thank
gotta
you
get
so
my
much for
average
coming
down.
on. Yeah. All right, yeah, guys, request them through POX, and they'll be 30 seconds. You're doing him a favor to get the average down. Tom, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
What an episode, Tom Gibis, everybody, the voice of Shikamaru. Tom truly is a genuine, I've said this a bunch of times, and I'll say it every single time I meet somebody who's genuine. He's a genuine stand-up guy, super kind, and I really appreciated him being as generous as he was with me when I first met him, especially him being kind of a hero to me. And the show meant so much. You guys know how much I'm a fan of Naruto, and it's great when you see the right people in the right places. So thank you so much for coming on, Tom. What a treat. And thank you guys for being here, listening, watching, whatever you're doing. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. You can leave a comment in the comment section. If you're listening on Spotify or YouTube or watching, you can leave us a review on any of your podcast platforms. We'd really appreciate that. And we also want to shout out our patrons on our brand new Patreon. The Patreon link should be coming up right now and also in the link in the bio. If you would like to be a patron and help us make this show even better, we're shouting out Alora, Sydney, and Seth, our official patrons and team members. Just getting started here on the Patreon. Thank you guys so much for contributing. It means a lot to us. We are loving making the show and doing it at the pace we're doing. So hopefully you guys are enjoying them. Please let us know if you have any questions as well. You can always email us. And thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day, week, month, year, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.